What's going on, everyone? Guys, I have been looking forward to this session for a long time. So as you guys can see, the ambiance is a little different. We're in one of my favorite places. Many of you guys have been here. We're at Hotel Haya, and this is probably one of those beautiful rooms in Tampa. But for this session, I was fortunate enough to have Kyle Scott from Northwing fly in. A lot of you guys know Kyle. Kyle has worked alongside of a lot of our consulting clients for years. He runs a top-tier marketing agency in our industry. And I'm really, really grateful. So Kyle, thanks a lot for coming.
Absolutely, thanks
dude.
for having me.
Are you pumped or what?
Great. I'm pumped. Yeah, we were just here for the conference, and it was like walking in a time machine coming in here. This place is so cool. I love it in here.
When you walked in, did you have visions of going, oh my gosh, there's going to be tons of pest control guys here?
Yeah,
today?
I did. Yeah, I started looking around for clients and started preparing for questions, and just you and the team today. So it's an easy day.
That's hilarious, man. Well, listen, man. I'm grateful you came down.
Yeah.
So I think kind of starting out, our audience.
For sure.
There's hundreds of pest control owners that watch us, tons of wildlife owners,
Yep.
Probably a lot of home inspection guys and a bunch of other people. But I think the first thing I want to have a discussion with you about is I don't know if people know you. You're kind of like the guy behind the scenes that runs a company that gets really good results for lots of people, but you're not the guy that's out there gloating about it and talking about it. So
No, I probably should be, but it's just typically not that type of guy. But I'm focused on their results. But I get what you're saying for sure.
Yeah. So what are you about, man?
Yeah, totally. So I think it's really important, in addition to driving results for our clients, for people to know that story. Right?
Yeah.
And it's something that I've learned is such an important ingrained part of my history and part of Northwing as well. So I have a huge heart for local service businesses. The reason that I started doing this is my dad owned a construction company growing up. So structural, home remodeling, things of that nature. And I was always the kid, telling him he needed a website, and it was early 2000s construction guy. I don't need a website, this whole tech stuff, this, that, and the other thing. But the internet took off. It became very clear, digital marketing is going to be an integral part of business. And my dad made the smart decision at the time to get out ahead of it. So his website's actually the first website I ever built.
Really?
Yeah. So I built it in GoDaddy Website Builder. I was in high school, mid high school, which was right around 2008, bad construction times.
Yeah.
So he made the really intelligent decision, I think, at the time to have me start working on that, and we launched it. I started doing SEO, a little bit of paid promotion. Search engine optimization back then was really easy. You weren't competing against anybody, right? It's gotten a lot more intense these days. But I think really that's why I have such a heart for it. Obviously, we work a lot in local service, a lot in pest control. We do work in other industries too, but my specific heart for the industry is I built that site, which was a terrible site, by the way. It's the first website I built when I was 17, whatever. But it worked. I saw the phone calls start coming in. It was a small organization. My dad was and still is the person who answers the phone for jobs coming in.
That's cool.
And I saw that start happening from the internet in my own home, from the haphazard work that I did at the time, right? I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I did what I knew could work, and it ended up working. So this means a lot more to me than just revenue, clients. I get the impact of what we do at Northwing every day. I know what it translates to on the other side because I saw that first. So I think that in my own approach and how I have relayed that in our culture really makes us different than others in the industry, because we get the impact of it. We take it super seriously.
It's pretty interesting, and it's funny hearing you talk about high school in the 08s, by the way.
Yeah, I know. I dated myself. There's no other way to say it.
Yeah, you just made me feel super old, by the way. So, and all I'm envisioning as you're saying that is I'm envisioning back when I was in high school, having AOL.com and running a wire across the house and plugging it in, and this thing called a website that slowly went up, and it was
so slow.
Yeah, it was shh.
And the dial tone.
Yeah, it was hilarious. And I just remember it. And then as I was thinking about that when you said it, the next thing I thought about was the mention you made about SEO and how easy it was.
Oh my God.
We built a business on direct domain match, right? To where we could say citypestcontrol.com.
Boom.
And we were number one.
Yeah.
And we built a business that way years ago.
Sure.
And it's crazy. And so it's really advanced a lot. So
do you know what's funny? I always say, because I was not engaged with, but I understood what businesses did with marketing from a really young age, just from that experience within my family and things. And I always joke that like SEO, the first form of SEO was naming your company with an A at the front, so you got to the top of the yellow pages. Like that was literally the original SEO.
I've never heard that before, by the way.
So that's why you see like Aardvark Plumbing or whatever, or AAA Plumbing. Like that literally informed the naming strategy, because you'd be the first one in the yellow pages where people used to go, right?
Yeah.
And then it translated, like we were just at the shift between that and websites. But again, like you said, if you had the right domain, or you just simply put the right words in the right places back then, boom, like right to the top. And it was a niche business that I worked on initially. So, I mean, it took strategy, but it wasn't competitive, but it was also so new. So we hit the magic, like mix at that point, and I saw what the result of it was. And I've just been, myself and my team have been chasing that ever since that day, and it's gotten so much more complex.
Yeah, and so like so I think you've hit an interesting point. So I want to like fast forward into the future today, right? So we think about the level of like I guess the level of connection there, right? So the level of connection, and I'm going to throw a hard one at you. It's like, how do you take this easy business of managing SEO, managing search engine, and all the things that you learn, and bring it all the way to the future? And I know it's a very difficult question.
It's a huge question. I mean, here's what I'll say about that. So, number one, anyone in my industry that tells you they know exactly where this is all going, or they know exactly what they're going to be doing in 5 years, is completely full of it.
Yeah.
So we're all making educated guesses, right? But they're educated guesses based on the information at hand and experience. Like, I've been doing this for 15 or so years. My company has existed since 2015. We have seen different iterations of this and where things have gone. And I think that gives us an advantage and gives others who have been doing it for collectively not that long, right? But as long as it's been around, where we've seen a few big pivots and changes and where the dust has settled after those. So I think it gives us a little bit of an advantage, but we don't know exactly where it's going. But we always operate with the assumption that about 30% of what we're doing right now won't even exist in 5 years. Yeah. And it's how we fill in that 30%.
It's a really interesting assumption. And I can tell you this, and you've heard my frustration around this before, is I get messages constantly, because I mean, you know my background. I'm a super analytic, right? When it comes to data. And I sit there and think about the stuff that I hear all the time and see all the time. And I see agencies that go, we guarantee that we're number one. We're guaranteeing that we're going to get you there. And I see well-known agencies in our industry and that are promising guys of the world. And all they're doing is trashing other companies. And you've heard me say this before. I say it to people, like, if they talk to you guys, I said, like, I like the fact that you guys talk in a level of authenticity. Sometimes you fuck up, sometimes you're right? And at least you admit to it. But I mean, let's talk about this for a second. So let's talk about the fact of the term guarantee in the industry. Let's talk about the term, you will be on the first page. Let's talk about the term when someone goes, hey, your cost per click or your cost per conversion, it's way too high. And there's really no actual data out there to support some of the things people are saying.
Totally.
So let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah, I mean, I would say guarantee is such a buzzword in our industry. And frankly, the way that I look at it, if a company has to guarantee first positioning or guarantee, I mean, what I would dig into is, what does that guarantee actually mean?
What does it mean?
Does it mean you're going to give me all my money back if you don't hit the mark? Like, usually no. It's a sales pitch. The guarantee happens until the paper's signed, and then you start hearing the real story. Well, it's up to Google's algorithm. We don't actually know, but we're guaranteeing we're going to try as hard as we can to achieve this outcome. It's just simply, there's so many factors. I mean, it's like guaranteeing the weather. Like, it's so many competing things happening, right? Where, like, our brand promise at Northwing isn't like centered around an outcome per se, although we do more often than not achieve positive outcomes for our clients. Our brand promise is, we are going to bring you value first before any type of sales pitch. So what we're going to do is, we're going to just show you, like, everyone has this black box and they're like, I know what's in this black box, you don't, you have to pay me to get it. We're just going to show you what's in the black box and how we're going to approach it. and we're going to detail out exactly what we're going to do before we do it and come to terms on that we both feel that's a good strategy. And then the chips will fall where they'll fall per se to some degree. But the key about marketing and digital marketing is not getting lost in all of the competing, changing elements and things like that. It's about setting the right strategy and doing the work we all know we need to do every month to get there. And having an open line of communication saying, you know, it does take time to work, but we're not going to tell you you're not going to see anything for 12 months, because that's usually, we're going to count on your revenue for 12 months, then you're probably going to go somewhere else, right? Yep. Like from an agency standpoint, we're going to meet with you every month, show you exactly what we did, show you the incremental improvements, and have an understanding that we're headed in the right direction.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So obviously the nature of our world, is we have to be fairly agnostic to agencies, right? And,
totally.
And we are, and we work with you guys a lot and work with other agencies a lot. And I would tell you the part that I find incredibly interesting is the success and failure call-outs, right?
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, and this is specific to you guys, and this is going to come across maybe negative, but it's positive. Is it makes me really happy when I get a message from a client that says, "Hey, we met with Northwing's team. Hey, they came to us with an actual strategy to actually improve the result. We didn't even know that our results were off. And they brought us something, and they literally said to us, hey, we're not 100% sure, but based on what we know, that we believe we're going to get a specific outcome that's going to help." And I've seen it mostly successful. And I think that really matters. And I think from hearing you talk, because I didn't know some of your background, is I think hearing you talk going, hey, I built a service business with my father, is that you understood what it was like to put the real kind of the real grease there to make it move.
Sure.
And I think maybe that's the Midwestern part of you guys. I don't know.
Probably,
but it's
we
really
have a hard time lying or doing anything like that. You know, we're just very upfront. That's our culture, and I think that's what you should look for in a company, though, to have that.
Yeah, and I think the part that you brought up, and I've seen this transition in your business over the years, is like the idea of bring value first.
Yeah.
And that's a core value of us too. And your team's the same. It's like when we get on a phone call, like somebody who wants to work with us in consulting or whatever service, whatever we're doing, or whatever one of our companies are involved in, is like, we don't go into a call saying this is a sales call, right?
Yeah,
we go into a call saying, hey, you're going to leave this in an hour or whatever it is, and you're going to either learn something new or have a different perspective. And by the way, if you want to work with us, then there's maybe an opportunity, but
first, it's secondary at that point, because the way that I viewed it is, we are in a business where largely someone is paying for what's in here, right?
Exactly.
Like our expertise. And how do you sell expertise if you don't lead with expertise? It's like going into a store to buy a product and they say you have to give me money to go behind this door to see the product. You know, it's like, who's going to buy that? You know, but let's just get it out there, show that we know what we're doing. We're not going to hit 100% of the time, but we're going to hit more than we don't, to the positive. But let's just get it all out there, decide on what we're going to do, and lead with the expertise first.
Yeah, and I think the big key here, at least from what I've seen with agencies as a whole, is the important piece as an owner is that an owner can't look at marketing as their silver bullet to success.
Correct. Yeah.
And I think that too often as a business owner, and specifically in the SMB market, is a business owner goes, man, my leads are down, or I need to grow my business. Well, if I just go spend some money, then my world's going to change.
Yeah.
Like, how do you guys have that right discussion with these guys? Because
Totally.
How do you have that right discussion?
It's a hard discussion. I mean, frankly, it's probably one of the more difficult parts of our business, because there's a lot tied into that, right? There's opportunity for success or failure. There's emotions. There's how your business appears. And there's the basic thought that, like most things in life, you can go spend an input and get an output, right?
Yeah.
Pretty predictably. Where marketing is just, and I think this is one of the reasons it can get emotional at times, is there's a lot of trust associated with it, especially if you're outsourcing it and you're working with someone. Unfortunately, because there are untrustworthy players, which play into that, right? But the secondary piece to that is, it's a iterative strategy that builds over time, right? So unfortunately, marketing has gotten so complex where I mean, it's fortunate when you nail it, right?
Yeah,
But
of
it's
course.
gotten so complex where it takes testing and building and an iterative process to get to that point where I'm going to put out X and I'm probably going to get Y, right? And it's never a guarantee, but it's about that trust and getting that spot. But I can tell you from dozens and hundreds of companies that we've worked with who put in the time and trust and we've found that right mix, they then get to that point where they reasonably know, I'm going to outlay this amount of money, I'm going to get this back. But it's also dependent on the business model, right? Yep. So that's why we love working with you, is in these relationships, we get more insight into that downstream business model to inform the marketing strategy up front. Because, I mean, it's no secret that pest control is all about the lifetime value of the customer.
100%.
Right? So if you're measuring success based on your first fee that you collect from the customer, your competitors are not measuring success that way. So you're automatically mismatched in how you're measuring what you're getting back from your marketing.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. And so like I hear so often, and you see it in the social media groups and all this stuff, and in the I guess the vulture marketers, right? I'll just call it what it is.
I like that.
Yeah, it's just what it is. Like
Yeah.
you see a guy online who runs call it a startup or call it a sub 1 route company, 2 route company.
Yeah.
They're trying to figure it out. Inefficient businesses. We need more leads, right?
Yeah.
And next thing you know, you get vultures jumping on them.
100%.
And I think like one of the biggest gaps that we face in our industry is the fact that outside of the vultures is like that guy is going to make a phone call and want that silver bullet, like I said.
Yeah.
People promise it to get the fees. I
For sure.
hate it.
I don't.
I see it. I tell people about it, and it really hurts people's futures.
100%.
But I think the other component is as companies get more sophisticated in working with agencies, I think the other part is like the ownership of what a conversion really is.
Correct.
And I've talked to you about this in the past,
Yeah.
and I would say it probably started our conversation years ago.
Probably,
was the fact that I don't care how many leads somebody can generate, right? What I really care about is that can we generate the lead, and then what that handoff looks like into the sales operations,
100%.
whatever your sales systems are.
Yeah.
But more importantly, hey, if our sales systems are good, how do we help that marketing agency, right?
Yeah.
And so how do we create a feedback loop that goes to Northwing or any other agency for that matter and says, hey, by the way, this is actually not a qualified lead for these 8 reasons to help you guys. And I think
100%.
too many people don't want to do that. I mean,
I agree.
The companies that do that for you now, and I know a lot of them,
Yeah.
like, do you see that there's a dramatic impact with that business?
100%.
What does that look like from your team standpoint and how you care about a customer, feel about a
Yeah,
customer?
I mean, I would say we are just baseline as interested in the lead quality as the clients that we work with, right?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't help our cause at all to be spending X amount of dollars on leads that aren't converting.
Yep.
But here's where it helps so much. The lead cost is going to settle out at what the lead cost is in the market, right?
You can do what you can do.
You can do what you can do. It's competitive across the board. It's what people are willing to pay for leads. Now, if you don't know what the hell you're doing, you may spend too much. But if you're skilled, if you know what you're doing, the lead cost is going to be about what the lead cost is. There are always just a massively higher number of leads in a market than you can capture with your spend, right? So what it allows us to do is go beyond just what the lead costs and make sure we're spending that cost on the right leads in the market, right? And I mean, it can dramatically impact, like say if for every qualified lead, you're getting 3 unqualified leads, if you can change that to 3 qualified out of 4 with some tweaks on our end that frankly may not be super difficult to implement. It's just about the knowledge to understand what to do. I mean, you're 3Xing your output of your marketing just by helping focus on the right leads. So what I want people to think about is there's no scarcity of pest control leads.
No.
Like it's hard the internet's brought things to such a scale where it's such a bigger bubble than you can even imagine, right? Of how many people are out there searching. You got to zero in on the exact right component of those that are searching, and direct communication between, consultants like yourself, our team, and the sales team at the client is what creates the ability to narrow in on that. And once you get that, it just boom, boom, boom.
I've seen the companies that have participated with you guys that we work with, as well as other agencies too, but where they participate in that feedback loop, and the results are stellar. Like I've actually seen, and I'll give you guys some shout out here. I've actually seen in some of the most complicated, difficult markets in the US, I've actually seen this work where clients are spending a lot of money with you guys.
Yeah.
And they've done it effectively, and the results have been crazy.
Yeah.
Like to the point where cost per lead is half, cost per conversion is a quarter.
And close rate is
right.
I mean, that's those things working together.
And I've seen it in several A markets, right, which are the most difficult. And I mean, it's really hard to go to an A level market where you have all the national providers and you're a regional provider. Now, these companies are spending a lot of money. These are not the SMB company, but they're coming in spending 30, 40, 50,000 a month with you guys, whatever. But they're competing against guys that are spending $250,000 a month in the same market, big markets. And I was really blown away when I saw it. And then what I've also noticed was that it was an immediate shift in the client's mindset to get aggressive. Companies that historically weren't aggressive were like, Seth, what do we do? Or they're coming to me going, hey, by the way, we're ready to put real fuel on this fire. And it's interesting to me because you would never see that years and years and years ago in our industry.
It's like the inflection point, right? Where this is what we deal with all the time. The second you cross, we touched on it earlier, but the second an owner or decision maker crosses that threshold of knowing what the equation is, what the spend is, what we're getting back, the mindset 180s. It changes from, I don't know what we're getting from this.
To
is this a good expenditure? To, okay, we ran the calculation, it's working, boom. And that is such a fun part of what we do. When we switch that over, there's a couple names I want to bring up so bad right now, but I won't, where it's like, let's hammer the gas on this thing.
It was interesting, and you know my background, but like coming from, salesperson, corporate sales, technologist, building as a head of revenue, right? Pest control technologist, and then coming back into the industry as a head of revenue and being able to go, hey, let me take what we do in the software industry and click that stuff in from a marketing standpoint. And it's really interesting to see that level of adoption because
for sure,
even our industry today, and you've heard me talk about it, we're 15 years behind the rest of the world in our industry as it relates to marketing sophistication, sales systems, like we're way behind. And so
it's come a long way in the past couple of years.
And
it's getting there, but you're correct.
And I'm hoping our companies drive that, right? Like I'm hoping we're driving it. I hope your companies are driving it. Other companies are driving it. But it's been very interesting and we're seeing the result. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. So I want to shift one more time for you.
Yeah, let's do it.
So I'm going to ask you, man, I get these text messages from time to time from clients you work with, and you're in the middle of the woods hunting with these guys. And so I don't know anything about it. Next thing I know, we've got calls with me or our team members, whatever's going on. Next thing I know, you're hunting with these guys. So how in the heck do you convince these guys to stop thinking about their business and get out there and go on these crazy hunting trips with you?
Good point. I think it's just partially a function of trust in the different operations in their business. I'm sure the work that you do with them to help get them out of the weeds certainly doesn't hurt. But what I really enjoy is, what I have a love for is the process of operationalizing a business. And, there's two things that come with that. Number one is increased freedom and flexibility, obviously. So, going up to Canada and going on a week-long hunting trip is, I've done some of the convincing on that, but some of those guys have convinced me too.
I know.
So that there's a give and take there. But no, I think it's getting out of the weeds, getting your head above water, having these things running themselves to some degree, operationally with you, marketing, hopefully with us, that's the goal. And then building a true enterprise value asset with your business. And some of the most rewarding things, the hunting trips are great, obviously, but what comes from that long-term is someday you have an asset where we've helped quite a few people build their businesses up to a point of sale, which is like, that's the biggest win for us, right? To be a part of that journey. It's so fun.
Yeah, I would agree with you, man. Like the hunting thing's fun, right? But I would agree with you. It's like, it's super fulfilling. I had a call this week where a client says to me, hey, Seth, we just got an offer for $15.2 million, right? What do we do? And they've been in business a long time, and I don't want to give too much context to it, but like their life's going to change, and if they accept, and
they'll be able to go on a few hunting trips for a couple of years
for sure. Knowing these guys are going to go open another company, but I sit there and think about, like, I hear these like companies that went from $1 million to $10 million to $20 million, and they're exiting. And our friends at Potomac are selling these guys for fortunes. And
For sure.
Or like the other story is the ones that build that perfect lifestyle business where maybe they don't go up to huge numbers, but they're a $3 or $4 million business,
and they have that flexibility, and they can go.
They're making $600,000 a year. They're living the greatest life of their life, and then their kids are going to take it over.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, man. It's pretty inspiring. So,
I mean, that's what I have a huge heart for, and I just love seeing that, man. It's so fun.
It's cool.
I like the hunting trips too.
Yeah, I'm not a hunter. I hunted the grocery.
Not all of us are crazy rednecks like me, but
yeah, I can get a little rednecky, but I hunt at the grocery store.
Yeah, there you go.
So listen, man. Before we kind of wrap up, all right, I want to do two things.
Okay.
First thing I want to do before I tell you what the second thing is I want you to look at the camera and I want you to tell a guy who's a startup company, if he wants to try to do some of this on his own, like what would be your recommendation? Because not everyone's ready for marketing agencies.
100%. Yeah, no, one of the biggest things that I do is help coach solopreneurs, startup companies who may frankly not be ready for our services yet. It wouldn't be a good business decision for them. What I would do if I were you is, first and foremost, we all know this in the business world, learn as much as you possibly can. Find some sources of information that you trust, that you can consistently watch and learn about marketing. I have a tendency to get too technical, but I'm going to get a little technical right now. If there's three things that you're going to do, number one, if you're trying to really save resources, build your own website on a DIY website builder, Squarespace, Wix, something of that nature. I actually just shot a video about this that's going to be released on Pest Daily. You can do it. It may take some time, but you're going to save a lot of resources and you're going to know your website inside and out. Number two, set up a Google business profile and optimize that thing to the levels that like 100% optimization. Posts, photos, right business categories, reviews. And then the third, if you're going to spend any money, if you're going to spend $1 in digital ads, get Google guaranteed and set up a Google LSA account. We offer a managed service for that. When the spend gets high, there are a lot of nuances to it. But if you just want direct input, output leads, learn as much as you can about the Google guaranteed system, set that up and manage it yourself to start. And frankly, those three things working together can get you to $1 million in revenue.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. And then talk to an agency. You can hire an agency before that if your growth goals are, if it's steep growth and you want to get out ahead of it, but you can get to $1 million in revenue doing that.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And I mean, you hear me talk about it all the time. And you guys, those of you guys who are watching this, I tell people all the time is that if you are a bootstrapped company, you don't need to spend marketing dollars until you're $250,000 in revenue because frankly, anyone you're going to buy from at that point, they can't support you. Your budget isn't going to be right. They can't support their staff. And people will disagree with me, but the guys that are going to go after that business, they're not the ones you want to support you, honestly. That's just from my heart, guys.
One, the other thing I would say with that too is carving out the time to learn it yourself.
I agree, yeah.
You are going to so much more effectively manage an agency in the future if you just carve out a chunk of your schedule, learn whatever you can about marketing, $0 to $250,000, $0 to $500,000. Because then you're going to be able to call people on their BS. You're going to be empowered with the knowledge. You're going to know.
Yeah.
So when you take that first step to hire an agency, you're not like going out in the wilderness, not knowing what's happening. You have a good, solid foundational understanding, and you can identify much more quickly if it's the wrong fit.
Yeah, 100%, man. So, all right, ready for the last thing?
Yeah.
All right, this is your chance. So on Session with Seth, you can ask me anything you want. So you can open whatever question you want about anything you want to ask me, man. This is your chance. You give me on screen anything you want to ask me.
Why pest control? Why'd you choose pest control?
Yeah, it's
That's a lame one, but I actually don't know that. And I want
so it was really simple.
Yeah.
Years ago in 2007, I didn't know anything about pest control, right?
Yeah.
And I worked at Cintas. I was in corporate sales. I was #1 in the nation in sales. And my head of operations said, hey, let's go start a business. And as the #1 rep in Cintas, I decided to jump into pest control. And by the way, those of you guys make fun of me. I was really proud of that years ago. But the reality was this, is that we looked at like 30 some odd industries, everything from like dry cleaners at your door,
Yeah.
to like all kinds of industries. And the only reason we fell in pest control was it was low barriers to entry. It was a recurring revenue model, and we realized that it could be a hunter-driven sale. And I knew that I could sell.
Yeah.
And so, so we went all in. My former business partner handed me $2,500 in $1 bills as I was flying out to President's Club. And I came back and quit my job as the #1 rep in the nation, and I opened a pest control company. But the thing that was interesting is it was my first time as an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
And it's weird to even say that now looking back, because I don't even still look at myself that way. But
Yeah, I totally get it.
yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
But the interesting is the only reason I actually did it is that my old company, Cintas, actually gave me a safety net. So they said,
Really?
you should go do it. The VP of the company said, you should go do it. And you always have a home here if you want to come back. And
That's
the
cool.
only reason I ever did it was because of that, because I was not a risk taker. I'm still not a risk taker.
Yeah.
I'm ultra conservative.
Yep.
And it's the only reason I did it. And obviously it paid off, but if it failed, I felt like I could have come back. But that's why I got into pest control.
That's
That was
cool.
it. Recurring
That's
revenue.
awesome.
Yep.
Like recurring revenue is king.
That's your best
the other-
question?
Yeah, I think so. I never knew that story, and that's cool. And I
Yep.
think one of the reasons that I asked it is I think myself, our team, and the people watching this are really glad you made that jump, because you've added a lot of value to this industry.
That's super cool.
You know, I got to end it with a compliment, but that's one of the reasons I wanted to know, because I didn't know that story, but we're glad you did.
Yeah, it's super cool, man. Well, I greatly appreciate you coming, man.
Absolutely,
so you've been
man.
great, and you've been a great partner
This
to
has
us.
been awesome.
And
You
I
have
know our
as well.
clients. Thank you, man. I know our clients have loved working with you. And I wish you guys all the success. I know you guys will be here for our next conference coming up.
Yep.
And I'm really grateful to have you as a friend, man.
Awesome.
So,
We are as well.
So guys, thank you guys so much for joining. Appreciate you
you.
guys.